In every city, countless untold stories unfold in the quiet corners, under the dim glow of streetlights. Tonight, I want to share one of those stories with you. It's a tale about courage, loyalty, and the silent heroes who watch over us when we're most vulnerable. This is the story of a stray dog, a group of lost children, and a night that would change everything. It begins on a chilly autumn evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in shades of orange and purple. The bustling city was slowly quieting down, but for three young siblings, their adventure was just beginning. They had been playing hide-and-seek in the park, their laughter echoing through the trees. But as dusk turned to dark, a simple game turned into a frightening reality. They were lost. The familiar paths of the park became a confusing maze, and the once friendly shadows now seemed to hold unknown fears. Their calls for their parents were swallowed by the growing silence of the night. Panic began to set in as they huddled together, their small hands clasped tightly. The city, which felt so big and exciting during the day, now felt overwhelmingly large and menacing. Every rustle of leaves, every distant siren, sent a fresh wave of fear through them. As they wandered deeper into the unfamiliar streets, they stumbled into a narrow, forgotten alley. It was littered with old boxers and discarded furniture, a place most people would hurry past without a second glance. It was here they met him. Curled up in a cardboard box was a large, scruffy dog. His fur was a patchwork of brown and gray, matted with the dirt of the streets. His eyes, when they opened, were weary but held a spark of intelligence and a deep, unspoken sadness. He wasn't a pedigree or a prized pet. He was a survivor, one of the many forgotten souls of the city. The children froze, unsure if this creature was another threat in a night full of them. The dog simply watched them, his tail giving a slow, hesitant thump against the cardboard. He didn't bark or growl. Instead, he slowly rose to his feet, stretched, and let out a soft whine, as if to ask what was wrong. The youngest child, a little girl with big, tear-filled eyes, took a tentative step forward. The dog lowered his head, a gesture of submission, of peace. Sensing no danger, the children drew closer, their fear slowly being replaced by a flicker of hope. They had found a friend in this dark, lonely place. They didn't know his name or where he came from, but in that moment, he was a beacon of comfort. They decided to stay in the alley for the night, hoping to find their way home in the morning light. The dog seemed to understand. He herded them gently towards the back of the alley, to a slightly more sheltered spot behind a stack of old crates. He settled down near the entrance of their makeshift shelter, positioning himself between the children and the open street. He became their self-appointed guardian, their sentinel in the dark. The night grew colder, and the city's nocturnal sounds became more pronounced. The distant rumble of traffic, the wail of a far-off ambulance, the clatter of a trash can lid somewhere down the street. For the children, these sounds were terrifying, but every time a strange noise made them jump, the dog would respond with a low, reassuring rumble in his chest, a sound that said, "I'm here, you're safe." He was their living shield against the anxieties of the night. Sometime after midnight, the real danger appeared. A pair of shadowy figures emerged at the mouth of the alley. They moved with a predatory stillness, their eyes scanning the darkness. They were not looking for lost children. They were looking for trouble, for anything they could take. They spotted the small, huddled forms at the back of the alley, and a cruel smile spread across one of their faces. They started to move forward, their intentions clear and malevolent. But they hadn't counted on the guardian. As they took their first step into the alley, the stray dog was on his feet in an instant. The weary, gentle creature was gone, replaced by a fierce protector. A deep, menacing growl ripped from his throat, a sound that vibrated with raw, protective fury. His fur bristled, his body tensed like a coiled spring. He planted his feet firmly, a furry wall between the children and the approaching threat. The men paused, surprised by this sudden opposition. One of them laughed, dismissing the dog as a mere nuisance. He kicked at a loose can, sending it clattering towards the dog to try and scare him off. But the dog didn't flinch. He stood his ground, his growl intensifying, his teeth bared in a clear warning. He would not back down. He was ready to defend his newfound charges with his life. The confrontation escalated. The men, angered by the dog's defiance, decided to force their way through. One of them lunged forward, brandishing a heavy piece of wood he'd picked up. This was it. The moment of truth. The dog met the attack. Head-on, he launched himself into the air. A blur of fur and fury, and a desperate, chaotic fight ensued. The alley echoed with snarls, shouts, and the sickening thud of blows. The children, awakened by the commotion, could only watch in terror from their hiding spot. Their guardian was fighting for them, a lone warrior against two aggressors. He was faster and fiercer than they could have imagined, but he was outnumbered and outmatched. He took heavy hits, but for every blow he received, he inflicted a painful bite, driving the attackers back step by step. The fight was brutal and short. The dog's relentless courage and ferocity was something the men hadn't anticipated. They were looking for an easy score, not a life or death battle with a determined animal. With painful wounds and torn clothes, they finally gave up. Cursing and shouting, they retreated from the alley and disappeared back into the night. The immediate danger was gone. The alley fell silent once more, the only sound being the ragged, pained breathing of the brave dog. He had won. He had protected the children, but the victory had come at a terrible cost. He was limping badly, and a dark stain was spreading on the pavement beneath him. Despite his injuries, his first thought was for the children. He slowly, painfully, dragged himself back to them. He nudged each of them with his nose, his tail giving a weak, tired wag. It was his way of checking on them, of telling them that the danger had passed and they were safe again. The children, seeing his wounds, began to cry, not from fear anymore, but from a profound sense of sorrow and gratitude. They huddled around him, stroking his matted fur, trying to offer what little comfort they could. The little girl rested her head on his side, feeling the slow, rhythmic beat of his heart. He had been a stray, a nobody, but tonight, he was their hero. He had given them everything he had. As the first hint of dawn began to lighten the eastern sky, the dog's breathing became shallower. He had fulfilled his duty. He had kept his watch. With a final, soft sigh, he closed his eyes. The children, exhausted from the night's ordeal, had finally drifted into a fitful sleep, curled up beside their protector. They didn't see him go. They just felt the warmth beside them slowly fade as the morning chill crept in. A little while later, the sound of frantic, calling voices pierced the morning air. A search party, led by the children's frantic parents, had finally found the alley. The relief of finding their children safe and sound was immense, but it was quickly tempered by the sight that greeted them. There, at the entrance to the alley, lay the brave dog. He looked as though he was merely sleeping, a final guard post he refused to abandon. His body was still, his duty done. He had stood watch until his very last breath, ensuring the children he'd just met would see the morning light. The children woke up to the arms of their parents, safe at last, but their first words were not of their own fear or relief. They were about the dog. Through their tears, they told the story of the dark alley, the scary men, and the brave, scruffy hero who saved them. He was a stray, with no name and no owner. But that night, he had a purpose. He was the Night Watch. He reminds us that heroes don't always wear capes. Sometimes, they have 4 paws, a matted coat, and a heart full of a loyalty that asks for nothing in return. Thank you for listening. Please remember to be kind to the forgotten animals on our streets. They might just be a hero waiting for their moment.